Hello, Sioux Falls. Welcome to Planning Preview for the month of November 2021. I'm joined with Jason Bieber with the City of Sioux Falls. How are you today, Jason?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Jason, it's hard to believe, but we've got just a couple months left here in the calendar year. How are things looking to get to be at the end of the year here?
Well, I think we just crossed over $900 million for building permit valuation, so we're pretty confident we're going to get over $1 billion, which is obviously a record by about $200 million. So we're excited about that, and as we go through some of these cases, typically we slow down a little bit here, and we still have 7 cases, which is above average for this time of year. So. Yeah. We're still humming along, I guess. So.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been busy, and this whole town has been busy without a doubt. So let's go ahead and get to the agenda items for this month. First on our list is a rezone. They're going from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the RS Single Family Residential. That's at 720 East Maple Street, so northern Sioux Falls, east of the airport or so. What do they got going on there?
Yep, this is kind of just one of those corrections that we do with Shaped Places. It's been a single family home for quite a while, and now I believe they're trying to sell it, and so we're just trying to correct it into single family residential for them. So. Okay,
sounds good. Next on the list is a rezone from the RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District to the RA1 Apartment Residential District. And Live Work District to the CN Conservation RA3 Apartment Residential High Density Districts. That's located at the east corner of 85th and Tallgrass Avenue. So southern Sioux Falls near 85th and I-29.
Yep, just pretty much the southwest corner of the city. And really, we've had this development and they've been working through the process on it. And now they're coming back in to kind of finalize their plans, really get some of the proposed detention ponds zone there, and then also get ready to construct a large apartment complex. This is the same applicant that did that large apartment complex at 57th and Sycamore. So you can kind of tell how much the city's growing out there. They're looking to build exactly the same one or the same size way out in the southwest portion of town. Really getting ready, hopefully, for the interchange to happen onto I-29. So.
Yeah, and phenomenal growth, and probably works well with that timing, yeah. I would imagine. Do you know, are we a couple years out on that still, on the interchange?
Yep, I think we've completed 85th Street over to Tallgrass. We've been working on that aspect, and I believe they're still working with the state then on the environmental stuff, and really just a matter of time. With a lot of these big projects we're working on with Veterans Parkway, there's quite a bit of money that we're putting in, and we don't have enough money to do them all, so you got to kind of stagger them together.
Yep, there's a lot going on, without a doubt. Next on our agenda is a rezone from the C3 Commercial Community District to the S1 General Institutional District. That's located at the northeast corner of Madison Street and Veterans Parkway, so out on the northeast side of town?
Yep, and this is way up there by I-90 and Veterans Parkway connection, just to the south of that. And really, once we made that connection, I believe last year, you're starting to see a lot of growth on that corridor going down towards Dolly Farm on Veterans Parkway. And this is just another example of that, is a medical use getting ready to build a clinic up on that property within there, and that's really because we're getting a ton more cars coming by those specific lots. With that comes houses, services, and medical clinics. So
yeah, totally a different change out there with that roadway being complete, and if people have not driven that yet, they need to. It's pretty amazing.
Very nice.
Next is a rezone from the C3 Community Commercial and Live Work Districts to the CN Conservation and Live Work District, located at the northeast corner of 85th and Audie Avenue. So this looks like the Schulte property down at 85th and Audie.
Yep, so this is just north of his existing car lot, and if you've seen down there that car lot seems to keep expanding. I don't know where they get all the cars or where they put all the cars, to be honest with you.
Stuff right now.
But Subaru is kind of a big model now, and people are loving it. But the applicant here kind of wants to do a little parcel that's north of the lot, the Subaru lot, and actually do a private outdoor dog park for some of the customers that come into Subaru and for other people within the neighborhood. So
very good. Seems nice. Next, we have a rezone from the RT1 Single Family Residential to this Traditional District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District. That's located at 100 South Grange Avenue in the Pettigrew neighborhood.
Yep, correct. Just 9th and Grange, just to the southeast of that vacant spot, which was an old school site. This is actually was an old grocery store way back in the day. I don't know how long ago, but quite a while ago. And now the building is needs a little bit of love, and I think it's been an apartment for quite a while. But the applicant's looking to kind of do what we call like a neighborhood service type coffee shop in that specific building, and really fix it up and possibly provide kind of a service from the neighborhood. It's kind of one of those things that we always hear from people where they go to like Minneapolis and say, well, they always have all these services right in neighborhoods, right on the corner of streets. This is kind of a similar thing, a little bit different for Sioux Falls. We don't have a lot of this. So it's going to be a little interesting. We have a neighborhood meeting next Wednesday at the library at 5:30. So it'll be kind of interesting to see the neighbors that come out, what their concerns are, if it's noise or traffic or what those are. See if we can figure out a way to alleviate those, and then the applicant could then move forward with something that could eventually be pretty nice for the neighborhood, in my opinion.
Okay, understood. Next on our agenda is a rezone. We're going from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District. That's located at 420 South Hawthorne Avenue, so south of 12th Street in South Central Sioux Falls.
Yep, exactly. Just one of those ones where it's an existing house and the applicant's looking to possibly turn it into a duplex. There's some challenges with that usually. You know, we got to make sure we got enough parking, off-street parking. Some of the services, you got to have dual services, furnaces and things. So we're working with the applicant on that. If it's something that we can get him to do or complete all those things that's required by the building code, it's one of those ways to get more units and kind of become more dense. So.
Okay, very good. And finally on our agenda, the loan conditional use permit for this month is an on-sale alcohol beverage establishment within 500 feet of a sensitive use. That's located at 2408 East 10th Street. So East 10th, kind of by 229 next to Qdoba.
Yep, and this is a gentleman that's looking to do kind of a hookah lounge and then also allow some beverages, probably beer and wine, that would be served as part of that. So. Okay,
understood. Well, thanks for joining us today, Jason. And stick around, Sioux Falls. For the second half of our show today, I'm joined by Kevin Smith. He's an assistant planning director with the city of Sioux Falls who has some good history with Sioux Falls and is just coming back to the department now. So please stay with us.
Hey, this is Seth and I work for the city of Sioux Falls in the housing division. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about gutters and why it's important to make sure that your gutters are clean going into the winter. I know right now it looks nice and sunny and warm, but real soon, as we all know, it's going to get cold and water's going to freeze. And so if you see this gutter right here is full of leaves and even has a little bit of dirt, if that's left long enough, you'll actually get vegetation growing out of your gutters. And that's a really bad thing for a couple reasons. Water can build up and actually sag your gutters if they're plugged, and it changes the slope of the gutter. So it no longer pushes the water down to the downspout and out. It actually gets into a little sag in the middle of the gutter, and it'll actually tear your gutter off, or your gutter will come off because of that. One last thing with gutters I'd like to explain to you is when they get plugged up, they actually cause the water to back up into the roof. And if you've heard of ice dams on your roof, oftentimes it starts with your gutter. And so water freezes in your gutter and ice above the gutter melts. And somewhere in the middle, there's water that is just sitting there that can't get out down the roof. So ultimately, keeping your gutters clean is a really important thing to do to your home. It's pretty simple. If you can just climb up on a, usually a 6 or 8 foot ladder is plenty big enough. Grab some handfuls and clean it out. And if you can't get up on a ladder, paying somebody to do this is worth it. Thanks for watching today's Home Maintenance Minute.
Welcome back from the break, Sioux Falls. As mentioned, I'm joined today with Kevin Smith, Assistant Planning Director for the City of Sioux Falls. Kevin, how are you today?
Very good, thanks.
Good. Thanks for joining us. I'm told this is your first time on the show. You've got a lot of history with Sioux Falls and the planning department, but happy to have you on the show finally. Let's go all the way back. Kevin, you've got a lot of history with Sioux Falls. Tell us back 20-some years ago, what made you then decide to get involved with planning department at the city of Sioux Falls?
Well, at the time, and even more so now, being a planner in South Dakota, there was so much going on with the city of Sioux Falls, and it's just been magnified even more over the years. But what a great opportunity to learn, especially from the mentors that were here at the time to teach us younger planners the more important aspects of the profession. So it was great personally, being a native South Dakotan, wanted to move home, and here I am 20-some years later, kind of back again.
Sure. Tell us about some of those mentors. I know there's some iconic names that were around the city of Sioux Falls back then. Talk to us about some of those people.
Well, Steve Metley was the planning director at the time. Mike Cooper was assistant planning director at the time. And for someone who was just kind of breaking into the field of current planning and learning what I needed to know, there were also folks like Russ Sorensen who really helped guide me and others on what we needed to know about how to prepare staff reports and interact with the public and interact with the Planning Commission as well, back when we met at City Hall. So it was in one sense, it was a smaller group, but in another sense, it was a great opportunity to learn from some very well-respected, knowledgeable people, and now hopefully that I can pass some of that along as well.
Certainly. So fast forward about 20 years from when you started with the city, you decided to take a break for about 6 years or so and go into public or into the private sector. Talk to us about that change and what that was like for you.
Well, going back through my career, I had the opportunity to work in the Public Works Department for several years with the city, and then had later an opportunity to go into the private sector. So that different perspective, I think, has really helped me personally see things from a true 360-degree point of view. That so often we can be in a career and just have blinders on. But certainly, being on the private side gave me a new look. Still worked in the development field with a couple of clients, and that really helped me understand some of the things that they go through as well. So I think that'll benefit me coming back to the city. But just over my career, I've always looked for opportunities to do something a little different and learn from it.
Yeah, certainly. So you were working away in the private sector, and then something had to change. Either somebody had to approach you or you had to approach them. How does this process work? And how did you end up back in essentially the same office that you were before you left?
Good question. Thinking back on it, I've known Jeff Eckhoff for a number of years, and Jeff's the primary reason that I really came back to work with him. We'd never really worked together. We'd served on nonprofit boards and even through Boy Scouts and our sons' athletic competitions that just always crossed paths with him, really respected him. And when the opportunity arose, I thought, all right, if I'm going to come do this again, Jeff's definitely someone I want to work with.
Certainly, certainly. So let's talk about a little bit of the changes. We all know this town's changed a lot, but I would imagine that office has changed a lot as well, with different technologies and processes from when you were here last, but then certainly when you would have originally started with the city. How does the office look differently now than when you were originally with the city?
Dramatically different, and having left and come back even in that short amount of time, I don't know that everyone else sees the amount of change that's actually occurred, but if you were to put it out on a timeline and really show people the advancements in the tools that the planning staff has, the tools that the inspection staff has to serve the public, to really streamline the processes we have in place, it is literally night and day, going from pink notepads and handwriting voice messages down to where they're at now, being able to do virtual inspections in some cases. It's dramatic, but it's a step forward. It's incremental. So on any given day you may not see it, but over the course of time, as someone who's been kind of in and out of it, it's really amazing.
It is amazing, and I think even I kind of consider myself an outsider. We can see it in the general public. The transparency and the openness that you can get with all the records online and the GIS systems and things like that. It's phenomenal, the amount of information that we have as the general public too, which is great to see. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the changes in the city itself. Absolutely phenomenal amount of growth here in the last couple of years, and there's always been very steady growth in Sioux Falls. But things looked a little bit differently here back in 1995 or so than they do now. Talk to me about those differences that you've seen from when you started your career originally.
A big year of building construction. I remember when we went over $200 million in construction. That was a big year. This year is going to be over $1 billion. So just to give you some perspective on the amount of growth the city is experiencing, these are great challenges, great opportunities for us, but with that also comes a greater responsibility for managed growth that, as the mayor has pointed out, growth for growth's sake isn't great. It needs to be managed, and certainly that's where a key role of the planning department. And if you look at the history of how Sioux Falls has been planned and worked cooperatively with Public Works and with the Parks Department and others, just having the right things in the right place at the right time is really a group effort. So the opportunities looking forward, certainly managing growth is our #1 job with the city, but as I look to the future, as Sioux Falls grows and expands physically, so do our neighboring communities. And the need for regional cooperation, I think, is going to be even a greater emphasis in the future.
Yeah, you bring up a great point there. You go back in time a little bit, and Sioux Falls was focused on Sioux Falls and what that meant. And now we have a greater effect on those towns because we're closer than we ever did before, and they have a greater effect on us too, and what they're doing with their roads and utilities and everything else, that matters greatly to Sioux Falls. Let's talk about some of those challenges, because I think it's important to know we do have some challenges in Sioux Falls, and one of those is affordable and accessible housing. So I know that certainly falls under your umbrella over at Planning Services now. Talk to us about what we're doing there to address that issue.
Sure. Well, Matt Tobias is managing that part of the program for us within the department, and the discussions that we've had recently with the Affordable Housing Advisory Board and their efforts to first define what is affordable housing and then help focus where to invest the public dollars to support affordable, accessible housing is a citywide challenge. And we understand we need to balance growth outward as well as growth inward. Infill development, where are the best places to have these kinds of developments constructed? That our support of the Affordable Housing Advisory Board and their efforts is really critical.
Very good. Yeah, and talk to me about some of the big projects we see around town right now, Kevin. It's just seems like it's changed so much so fast. What used to be a big project in Sioux Falls no longer is. And how have we gotten to this point where we get some of these awesome big developments in town?
Well, Sioux Falls has gotten noticed on a national level, whether it's Amazon or other, pick your large development, large employers. Looking at Sioux Falls, we're also seeing interest from national home builders, seeing what the economy is like in Sioux Falls. The challenge that brings with us, though, is making certain that we have the utilities to support them, the infrastructure in place or planned to support those, as well as the workforce. So again, that is not a challenge unique to Sioux Falls, that other communities in our area, in the state, are facing the same thing. So when we look at housing issues, it isn't just Sioux Falls, that we're seeing that as a regional, statewide issue that we all should be addressing.
Yeah, and earlier, Kevin, you had mentioned you had been around Jeff Eckhoff for many, many years, but you never actually worked together. So now that you've gotten that opportunity and you've kind of gotten your feet wet with that a little bit, what does that relationship look like? What's the collaboration look like? I know Jeff's a guy who likes to involve a lot of people and get a lot of great input. So what's that process been like so far for you two?
The collaboration works really well because we have skills and abilities that complement each other, that we're not we're not overlapping, that we have a pretty clear division of, hey, here's where your strengths are, here's where mine are, and we work really well together. But certainly it's because we've known each other for quite a while, and I've got a lot of respect for Jeff and his background in economic development and things where necessarily I wasn't involved in the past. So it's a great thing to remember, for all of us, in positions of, well, where do I fit in, and where can I assist and make sure that I'm bringing value. So whether it's my position here or anyone else, great career things to think about.
Yeah, without a doubt. So let's think about the future a little bit. And it's hard to predict in this town what's going to happen because there is so much growth. We do know we're going to grow, but what does this town look like in 10 years? What's the big difference?
Well, if we grow by the rate of 5,000 people per year, think about adding the city of Aberdeen to the city of Sioux Falls. And the vision of that is hard for some people to imagine because they don't see that kind of growth over time. The incremental building here, building there, that's what a lot of people see. Our vision includes, if we grow by that amount, we need to have water, we need to have sewer, we need to have storm drainage, transportation, certainly land use, housing brings that all together. And that's where the planning department works with others, including the development community, to find out, all right, well, where is the best place to construct high-density residential land uses or industrial land uses so that we can support that kind of growth, because it's going to continue. We don't see it slowing down in the near future.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So what are the metrics you use to decide where certain things need to go? When does a sewer capacity need to open up? What are the tools you guys use to make those decisions? Does it just come from a lot of the good experience you've got, or?
It's a lot of collaboration with the Public Works Department. It begins with sanitary sewer capacity. Is where can Public Works physically serve with some of their services? Okay. And this goes all the way back to the $200 million investment the city is making to upgrade the wastewater treatment plant right now. That is to increase treatment capacity there so growth can be accommodated. Not a lot of people necessarily know where the water rec plant is at, or they've never been to it. But that's a $200 million investment by the city to ensure growth can continue. Our previous investments in the Lewis and Clark regional water system to bring 27 million gallons of water per day to the city of Sioux Falls. Those investments take a lot of planning, investment, but it's to ensure that we've got growth potential. And then certainly from the land perspective, there's also the need to extend and expand our roadways. So it isn't just one department, it's all of us working together. And then aside from that, the amenities, the bike trail system, the parks, the arts that people really are drawn to the city of Sioux Falls are also things we undertake.
Yeah, and I think we're so lucky to have a great mix of balance there in city of Sioux Falls. We've got those things we need. We've got the water, the sewer, and the roads, and they're all things that are critical. But then those quality of life things are all here as well, which makes this town such an awesome place to live. So, we recently attended an event at the Levitt and walked downtown afterwards, and it was incredible. If anyone remembers what Phillips Avenue was like back in the days of the Loop, when downtown really closed down at night, to go down on a Friday night
and just feel the energy. It is amazing, and it's so fun to be part of that as a city employee, to know that, you know, in some small way we did our part to foster that. And certainly there, you know, the private investment that goes on, I don't know it gets as much attention or as much recognition as it should, because there are a lot of people taking risks, financial risks of their own on the future, and you know, part of our job is to minimize those risks on the public side and do that cooperatively.
Yep, that's a great point. There is so much risk and investment in this town, whether it's an individual choosing to put up their home here and take out a mortgage, or some of the larger developments. It's truly putting millions of dollars on the line in a bet that hopes that Sioux Falls does continue to grow. And I think it's worked out well for a lot of people. So welcome back to the city of Sioux Falls, Kevin. Thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us today, Sioux Falls. As always, I'd like to bring up our next meeting. So the next Planning Commission meeting is going to be November 3rd at 6 p.m. at the Carnegie Town Hall in downtown Sioux Falls. As always, we like members of the public to come and speak and provide public input on the agenda items that we discussed today. But also we have the opportunity for the public to speak on non-agenda items. So if you have anything you'd like to speak about, planning and zoning related, we'd love to see you on November 3rd. Thank you.